Yeah, I want to go over this Beck protocol one more time. Actually, I'm going to put a lot of videos out on this because, I'd like to know the mystery behind why it does work sometimes and sometimes it doesn't work. In theory, it should work perfectly every time. This is Femin showing the eight ball. Eight ball or infinity is number 8 going in. This is also the sign of infinity. Um, these girls are probably paid off by somebody, and I don't think they'll get into some cool causes, but I think some of the better causes out there would be medicinal marijuana oil and the Beck protocol, and which would be saving people's lives left and right instead of this other mumbo jumbo that goes on. But anyway, it'd be kind of cool if we get some feminine involved or some working girls. But this is an original patent by Dr. Colley. This was, this is a basis for the Beck protocol. Dr. Bob Beck, physicist, PhD. And there's actually a bunch of different patents with this. Really, if you look down, it's referencing other patents, and they go all the way back to 1897. And I'm going to tell you, this is not hokery at all. This is not hokery, and was actually done by serious scientists. But the problem is, it's cheap. But basically, this was using a DC voltage. An appropriate. I'll just give you and I'm going to tell you, it works in the petri dish, so figured it works in the body. Appropriate electrical field strength to provide electrical current flow through the blood on other bodily fluids of a magnitude that is biologically compatible but is sufficient to render the bacteria, viruses, and or fungus ineffective to infect normal healthy cells. So in other words, it causes, actually what it does is it takes the virus and it disrupts the outer protein layer of it so it can't infect or attach itself to other healthy cells. Like, that's how viri actually live. And actually, a virus in itself is not really alive in a true sense. It's a parasite. It needs something alive to function. So that's really what it is. If it can't attach itself to another healthy cell, it's done. And this is the actual second patent. There's actually a bunch of patents on this, but this is the second main patent. That first one I mentioned was using DC electricity. But basically the long-term usage, you want to use the AC electricity, which is that Beck, Dr. Beck zapper, if you want to call it that. Maybe that's not the correct term, but it's about what most people commonly know it as. If you look up on eBay, Beck zapper, you might get the correct thing. This is patent number 5188738 from February 23rd, 1993. Already 20 years ago. Basically saying the same thing, except they're using alternating current, a process for treatment of the blood and or bodily fluids to basically provide an electric current through the blood and other bodily fluids at a magnitude that is biologically compatible but is sufficient to render the bacteria, virus, and parasites and or fungi ineffective to infect or affect normal healthy cells. You got to remember, viruses basically aren't really like a living organism in a true sense. It needs a living organism to survive. It's not actually living in a true sense. It's a parasite. It needs something to actually, keep it going. Without the host, there is no virus. So, there's something else I want to point out here too. This is actually where they were using it. Originally this was for HIV. This was specifically, this current was like Dr. Colley was developing, was for HIV specifically. What happened later on was that when Dr. Beck, who is not an MD, but actually a PhD in physics. Now, there's another Dr. Otto Robert Becker that is an MD that did a lot of work with the body electric. That's somebody else, too. But Dr. Robert Beck, PhD physicist, he actually applied this, and they tried a bunch of experiments with people with beyond stuff that had HIV. They tried it on Hep C. They tried it on all kinds of, malaria, Epstein-Barr virus, and he claims it worked. Now some people say it's not true. It's true. It possibly is, because I think the difference is why it works sometimes and doesn't work is probably the amount of blood that people are actually zapping Because, the way I look at it, common sense. If it works in the freaking petri dish and you're zapping the blood supply the same way in the body and it's not hurting anything at all, because that's what the patent says, the observation is it doesn't hurt any blood cells. It's just causing the viruses not to be able to infect normal healthy cells for a period of 1 day and 2 hours approximately. It's a little over a day. See, that's why you got to do it every day till the virus is purged. But basically what it is, an exposure of 50 to 100 microamps of electricity, which is millionths of an amp, okay, compatible to a cardiac pacemaker, reduce the effectiveness and effectivity of the AIDS virus, HIV, from 50 to 95%. See, the original patent was for just HIV, but they found out later on it worked for all kinds of stuff. So like one pass of the blood, it knocks out 50 to 95% of HIV viruses for approximately a little more than 25 hours or so, that it cannot affect healthy cells. So without a host, it dies off or gets killed by white blood cells. But it works on a lot of stuff, supposedly. These experiments described March 14th in Washington, D.C. Now you're talking, this is back in the 90s, I think 1992. At the first International Symposium of Combination Therapies, showed that the shock viruses lost the ability to make an enzyme crucial to their reproduction, and it could no longer cause the white cells to clump together, two key signs of viral infection. So, they talked about, this is what they were talking about, they're going to make implantable electrodes in the body or use a dialysis machine to actually zap the blood. But then Dr. Beck came out with the in vitro method using the outside of the body with the electrodes over the arteries to zap. This is primarily discovered as an HIV thing, but it seems to work with a lot of different things. And they mentioned a repeated exposure to leave blood virtually free of HIV as well as hepatitis without harming blood cells. Now, I want to get into one other thing here, and I'm going to follow this up with a second video because just the actual how-to approach on this thing, where you're going to, if people want to experiment with this, I say experiment with it in the correct fashion. Don't use the same wrist method or any of that bullshit, because I don't understand how there's a lot of room that could be erroneous, where you're not getting the complete blood supply using the same wrist method, and I'll explain that in the following video. But this actually may be, along with medicinal marijuana oil, some of the biggest medical discoveries out there, bar none. The beauty of this damn stuff is you don't even have to grow a plant, and you don't even have to, once you buy this stuff, it's like you never buy nothing again. Now, I could tell you this, that I've been, there was another theory on this in some other paperwork that showed that there's an effect of raising the ATP in the body if you do this blood zapping a lot. Once you clear out all the pathogens, you got to start it slow. You got to do 15 minutes a day, work up to 30 minutes a day, then work up to an hour and a half a day, because you're actually causing these viruses to die off because they have no place to infect. It's like it's actually just getting rid of the bad stuff and actually cleansing the blood. That's what it's supposedly doing. Now, I'm showing a graph here, a diagram of a human body and a lymph system, but I'm going to get on to something with this too. But what I say is, like, I've noticed it supposedly raises your ATP by unclumping the red blood cells. I've noticed that my cardio, when I'm doing 3 hours of cardio often in a row at high intensity, like it's a breeze, like I used to. So I'm going to keep doing this shit no matter what. I don't know what the hell it's doing, but and since I've increased this, it's probably unclumped my red blood cells and raised my ATP production quite a bit, or some garbage. I have no idea, but it's not my imagination. My energy has increased greatly. Now, but also I want to actually point this out to other people who want to use this against something. You know, Dr. Beck actually talked about the lymph nodes. You got to pulse the lymph nodes with the magnetic pulsar to get those parasites into the blood where they can get zapped. Well, I want to point something out. They got this thing called cistern of Piquet, or cistern of Piquet. I don't know if that's French. I don't know how to say French that well, but basically, right here in the center of the body is a large reservoir of where things can accumulate that the zapper can't get into. Now, something you might want to do if you're trying to purge the body of various things is you might want to put pads on each side of the torso right in this location where the cistern of Piquet, this large lymph reservoir, is located, and zap the shit out of it. Just to put it in plain language. Yeah, I know it covers too much, but sorry, it's kind of a habit of being in the I don't know, Marine Corps or whatever the hell it is. But it's, I don't know. But anyway, zap the hell out of it. Zap the hell out of this area too. And that may be something to do besides using the wrist-to-wrist and ankle-to-ankle method. And on the next video, I'm going to show you exactly how I set this up to work when I work out. And I've been using ankle-to-ankle and wrist-to-wrist while I'm working out, which actually, while you're working out and doing intense exercise, you are actually, you know what exercise does besides, you know, move the blood and all that type of stuff? It actually pumps the lymph system. So the lymph system is actually being purged in and out with intense exercise all the time. So if you're zapping at the same time, you're zapping everything inside the lymph nodes too. That's a cool thing. So I think this is a pretty cool freaking theory. Now, if Femin wants to get upon it with medicinal marijuana oil and the Beck zapping protocol, I think that would be cool. It would be 8 to infinity. This is the infinity sign. And basically that would be the ticket to world peace. But I don't know, I think these girls are pretty much into screaming and politics too much and not with world peace and healing. But that's just how it goes, man. But anyway, I just want to pass on some of these tips about this Beck protocol, especially about the one about you know, zapping the lymph system right in this area, in the center. And I'm going to produce a video right now on actually how to set up, like if you're working out at the gym, this would be one of the best things to do. Set up those devices wrist to wrist or ankle ankle or both when you're on the cardio machines, and go work out, because you're going to be pumping that lymph system and you're going to be zapping everything. It actually makes the magnetic pulsar kind of mute, because if you're actually pumping the lymph system while you're zapping, guess what? You're just getting everything all at once, and you might want to zap right through the torso, because maybe this is an area something can hide. So just want to put that out as some tips, and Femin, they can just do their own crazy thing and get paid by whatever rich bastard's paying them, you know.